All right, thanks for being here today at the TCG event. I'm Mike Chase. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Solutions Engineering Group at airespring. So that's basically the pre-sales engineering team. We're here to serve you guys. We only sell through the channel, so we have no direct agents of any kind. So thank you for everyone out there. Just by a quick show of hands, how many people have already heard of airespring? Anyone? Okay, about half. Good. So then those of you who haven't heard it, we'll get to hear it today. So we have quite a few different products. I'll just jump in. A little bit about airespring. So airespring was founded in 2001. So we've been around for a while. We're 100% channel focused. So three brothers own the company. Very solid, very honest guys. Avi, Daniel, David Lonstein. And under their leadership, that's the reason why we're debt-free and we're privately owned. We just upgraded all of our data centers. We have 4 POPs in the United States. LA, Chicago, Dallas, New York, and upgraded those last year, and we're still debt-free. So when you see, all that merger and acquisition activity going on, or sometimes people filing for bankruptcy, that's not going to be us. Headquarters in Los Angeles, but we have staff coast to coast, so California, New York, Florida, and 12 states in between. But we do voice, data, and managed services. So on the voice side, we actually handle 4.5 billion SIP phone calls a month. So that's literally half the population of Earth every single month. And due to the upgrades in our data centers, we can actually scale that today to 9 billion. So we've got a very robust infrastructure. We've done some tours of the upgraded data center. So if you've ever wondered what was behind the magic curtain in the Wizard of Oz, we gave tours of the Los Angeles and the New York data center. The next one, keep your eyes peeled, will be the Chicago data center, and then Dallas that we'll be giving tours of. So you definitely want to get in on that. We've got north of 14,000 customers, and the majority of those renew year after year. So we're trying to do our best to keep those guys happy. We are 24/7 by 365. We have a NOC as well as a SOC, a Security Operations Center, in addition to the Network Operations Center. So headquarters in LA. This is actually our new building. We're in Van Nuys, California. It's about 40% larger than our old headquarters, which was on the other side of town. So this one literally is directly across the street from the Van Nuys airport. It's a nice place. I mean, definitely if you want to come out and see us, we have a solutions engineering lab that a gentleman named Chuck on my team put together. And so if you ever want to see what an IP phone call over a satellite link looks like, or over SD-WAN, a lot of different scenarios, you can come out, meet the team, meet the owners of the company, see some really, really cool technologies, and we'll even take you out to lunch. So basically we're a super carrier who's an aggregator. So we have our own backbone, we have our own data centers, we have 13 POPs overseas for global SD-WAN as well. But we're able to sell what all these dozens of carriers have in addition to what we have, and create a solution for your customer that's very flexible. I think we're the only carrier I know of who grants, for example, read-write access to our VeloCloud SD-WAN platform. Our price many times is half of what our competitors are. But we can mix and match all the circuits, or you can choose with certain solutions like SD-WAN not to buy any circuits from us at all. But this gives you the ability for a one-stop shop. So Joe, who is sitting right here, wave your hand, Joe, just so everybody knows who you are. Joe will get you quotes from our real-time tool. It's called QuoteSpring. And literally this tool will connect to all these carriers versus you having to go to every single one and waiting. You know how fun it is to get a quote, right? Joe can literally do a quote for you in a matter of minutes you give him the address and the MPA, NXX, and he'll tell you everything that can possibly be delivered from any of these carriers at that address. And you can also choose, if customers have preferences, I don't want this carrier or that carrier, he can choose to exclude those and then deliver you a quote that's ready to sign, even e-sign if that's how you want to do it. So we've got some pretty cool capabilities. QuoteSpring is real time. Joe will do all your quotes for you. If you do want access to the tool, however, we grant that to agents as well. So across the board, we handle cloud voice communications. We do SIP trunks. We do PRIs. We do POTS lines. We do hosted phones. The hosted phones are Polycom phones with a Metaswitch backend. We kind of guarantee voice end-to-end because we're really one of the last phone companies. Everybody's shipping a phone, and to be really honest, those will work 85% of the time, no matter where you plug them in. I get a lot of the doctors and lawyers because they're the guys who say, I have no patience for a down phone system. I don't want to hear any excuses. So we actually, when you buy a circuit from us, we can guarantee the QS on the circuit. We can do it over SD-WAN. We've got a lot of tools in our bag to hook you up. But we're kind of old school. We'll roll a truck. We'll put the Polycom phone on the desk, which on a 3-year contract, the 401s are free. So, you get those customers with 500 phones, 1,000 phones, 5,000 phones. Imagine having free phones on a 3-year contract. So those are free. We'll put them on the desk. We can ship the PoE switches, configure them for QoS, the router, the circuit, and then the back-end platform is MetaSwitch. We have a soft phone as well called Accession, and we also sell Accession Meeting with that. So if you guys are familiar with Zoom, that's integrated with the MetaSwitch platform. Now it's kind of nice. I know you can go buy Zoom on your own, but it's really kind of neat because we use all of this internally. AirSpring eats all of its own products. So, when you look at headquarters, for example, when I showed that picture earlier, we've got 2 VeloCloud SD-WAN boxes running high availability, 2 SonicWall managed firewalls, and then we've got our hosted phone. So we're using all these products. That's why we know they work, and we go through the same support channels. We don't have, a different way that we call to get service. When we call in, they don't know that it's us versus you, quite honestly. But bottom line, we've got tons of voice that we can provide for you with SIP trunking. We also do call center seats. Those start off around $20 a seat, so it's very cost effective, has a lot of nice features, meets a nice price point. Quick comment on call centers too. It's actually easier to go into a business, and if you guys really get to know your clients, right? Because they trust you guys as the advisor. It's actually easier to sell call center to new clients and then watch them grow tremendously. They start off with 3 seats, 5 seats, than it is to go try to replace something that's already there. And there's tons of customers who aren't running call center today. You ask them, how do you handle your customer support? Oh, it comes in, it does a simultaneous ring to like 5 people. You should be saying, hey, that should be call center. So a lot of opportunities there, but we cover everything across the board. And then of course you can mix and match circuits and products and different things from the dozens of carriers that we represent. We sell internet. We sell managed connectivity. Managed connectivity is kind of a cool circuit. Basically, it's QoS, but it's an internet circuit. And so people always, our competitors would say when they would hear this from customers, and we'd quote it, the price is great on it, they'd say, there's no QoS on the internet. Well, that's true. But the reality is that because we're connected to so many carriers, it's an internet circuit, but if you're heading toward any AirSpring IP, it makes a left turn at the last minute before it goes out to the internet, and you have, full quality for voice and many other products that are coming back to AirSpring. So it's kind of a hybrid circuit. Then we've got MPLS. That was the traditional way that everybody would deliver quality of service and other stuff. But we were doing that even different because being connected to so many different carriers, we could mark and remark traffic between all these different carriers and give you one multi-carrier, multi-mesh MPLS network. And we can still do that today. SD-WAN, we have 2 products. We have Cisco Meraki, and we have VeloCloud, which has now been acquired by VMware, and I actually sit on their technical advisory board. So, we're on the latest version. One thing I see that's really interesting across the 50 carriers that sell the product is that a lot of them are on, 5 or 6 versions old, right? So they don't have the latest features. The other thing is just because they might be on a slightly newer version, they may not be on 3.3.0, which is the very latest, and we've just upgraded in the last week. As you know, with carriers, they can get really rigid about what they're willing to do for you and what they're willing to roll out. They certainly won't give you read-write access to the platform. We give you read-write access. Our pricing in many cases is half what the competition's is. And in addition, if there's a feature, and this is true across all of our product lines, whether we're using gear from Cisco or Adtran, or we're doing SIP trunking, or the VeloCloud, if there's a feature in there that the client could use, they allow my team to design it in, which is super cool. And again, your customer can get read-write access. A lot of people do it for visibility, but some people actually read the manual or they actually go to VMware classes and then they can do what they want with the SD-WAN. We also have a wholesale market, so you're going to see some pretty large carriers and MSPs rolling underneath AirSpring and selling the VeloCloud solution under us. And that actually happens today, by the way. I won't name names, but there's some very large phone companies, people that do those hosted IP phones, several of them, who actually use the AirSpring network to deliver in situations where the QoS isn't so great and they need to get QoS and guarantee that the phones are going to be good versus, most people today, they just stick it on the internet. And then last but not least, we do manage IT. So this comes in 2 forms. One, we manage everything that we put in. So if it's Cisco Adtran, SonicWall, VeloCloud, Cisco Meraki, we're going to guarantee that it's managed. When you send an order to us, it goes to a project engineer, then it goes to a technical discovery engineer, then it goes to the provisioning team. We've got a very large team at AirSpring with a lot of talent on the bench. The company pays for a whole lot of training. We send people to SIP school. We get them Cisco certified. I'm a CCIE. We have numerous CCIEs floating around the company. So we've got a pretty good route switch team, and that's extremely important for some of these new technologies. But we do have managed firewalls. We use SonicWall for that. We'll also sell the Meraki, which can, it's kind of SD-WAN light, and then it has a firewall. We'll sell that just as a firewall, just so you know, as well. And then, of course, we have free monitoring and a lot of free portals that you can use. Award-winning customer service. We work really hard. I mean, every carrier makes mistakes from time to time. I will tell you, and this is the reason why, I have no problem putting my reputation right next to Avi, Daniel, and David as they stand by their products. So, every day there's some kind of management meeting at the end of the day, and we kind of recap. And if you send an email or you call, you can go all the way to our CEO. If you've ever seen our escalation list, the buck stops here. Okay, so Avi's right there at the bottom of the list, and that's literally his contact information, his real phone number, his real email. When you send it to him, he gets all over it, and then we fix it for you. So mistakes happen, but honestly, we really do a good job at fixing that sort of thing and trying to get it in the way you want it. And also, kind of mitigating dealing with all the carriers, right? Some of these carriers are pretty tough to deal with. We're one of AT&T's largest resellers in the United States. We have, dozens of other carriers, Frontier, Windstream, a lot of broadband providers as well. I'm sure a lot of you don't want to spend your Friday night talking, 3 hours to one of those guys. We'll do it for you. In fact, on our SD-WAN, I always say if everyone has an internet connection when you show up, we'll actually allow you to plug that into the box and we'll manage it for you for the trouble ticket. So all those broadband connections that you have, when you start putting in SD-WAN, definitely go with us because that's a free feature. We'll actually call those guys on your behalf once you sign an LOA. And again, Avi, Daniel, these guys, and I have to say, because I've owned plenty of my own companies and worked for quite a few as well, these guys are operators, not just owners. They show up shoulder to shoulder every single day, on time, working with us to make the company better, and that's why they're here on this escalation chart. With the real information, you can send an email and literally get a response same day and they'll be on it. We're big enough to do some of the largest deals in the world. We've got some huge logos, but small enough to really be a one-stop shop. Again, Joe can get you quotes literally in 90 seconds. We can also do bulk loads, so when you have 100, 500,000 sites, and we get these all the time, particularly in the retail sector, you upload it to him in a spreadsheet, he uploads it to the system, and you get it back within 24 hours. And frankly, you'd probably get it back in a few minutes if it was just us, but the APIs with the other carriers can't handle all the transactions that we send them, so we have to kind of spoon feed it to them, which is pretty funny. But we're a single point of contact, so when you sell something, Joe and I are here before, during, and after the sale, and that's true for your customers as well. 7 years ago, a little story on me, I worked for airespring. I was running the core engineering team, so I've had a lot of people that have worked for me at the company. That's run by a very bright guy now, Darren Sanford, because I left, started a cloud company. I was hosting Bank of England, Morgan Stanley, a few small companies, and then I sold it. I had about 80 employees working for me in data centers all over the world. Sold it, and then I came back to airespring. So I know a lot of the people there, so when you email us, we can get on top of it, or you can go straight to the top with Avi, but just know we're always available, and I answer email pretty much 7 days a week, nights, weekends, on the plane. I'm usually flying somewhere, so easy to reach, but we can give you one bill, one throat to choke for support, one quote. Same team. Most of our channel managers, like Joe, have been here for over 10 years. It's been about 3 years since I've been back. We have a lot of people actually who've come back to airespring who kind of took off and then they're back now, so the A-team is here. Sometimes people like to call us the Amazon of the telco industry. I mean, it's really interesting when I go to events because I'll have all these carriers up there kind of jockeying for position. I'm fortunate because I can just kind of look down the line and say, hey, I'm not competing with any of you guys. We sell all of you guys and aggregate it into one big network. So makes my job very easy being that one-stop shop. So let's talk about cybersecurity. It was really interesting actually because my boss, Daniel Onstein, I used to report to Avi, now I report to Daniel, and then I came back. Wanted me to do this presentation last month, and just so you know, every month we do agent trainings. I would highly suggest you get on them. The next one's going to be on the 25th of July. It's called Global SD-WAN. We're unveiling 13 POPs connected to a 10 to 100 gig redundant network worldwide that's full mesh. So imagine MPLS, but better, and you can deploy in China, behind the Great Firewall of China, because you have to be authorized as of last year. You can't just put in an IPsec VPN or SD-WAN without approval, and there's only 5 companies approved to do it. So if you're deploying in China, North America, or Europe, there's no better way to get connectivity than do it to airespring. And then once you're connected to airespring, not only are you connecting all your offices, but what you're going to see happening in 2020 is called universal CPE, where essentially all your connections are going to be virtual cross connects. There won't be waiting for the circuit and all this stuff. Pretty much customers are going to get 2 fiber circuits, 2 trenches, get 2 boxes in high availability mode called universal CPE. And Dell's already making this equipment. If you go look up the Dell 4600, it's a universal CPE box. AT&T's got a box called Flexware that does basically the same thing. And so what's going to happen is you're going to create virtual cross connects to Amazon and Azure, your cloud provider, whoever it is, Google. We already do that today to all the major cloud providers. We call that multi-cloud connect. You can connect to the cloud. You can have clouds connect to each other. It's a really cool product. The other thing is you'll connect to your internet service provider and you'll get your public internet IPs that way. How many times today do you go get internet, you get a circuit, you get public internet IPs on it, and guess what happens when that circuit goes down? The IPs go with it, right? Not anymore. In fact, today we have a product called IP Mobility where we can make that sticky to a port on the back of a SD-WAN box and with VeloCloud. So it's really kind of neat. We're the only ones who have figured out how to do this. And so I've had a lot of people roll under us for wholesale reasons just to get that feature. Because what happens is now you can use dozens of carriers upstream, and when they go down or you decide to move and that carrier is not available or whatever the reason is, you switch carriers, those IPs stay sticky with the box. So you never have to reconfigure your IP-enabled PBX. You never have to reconfigure your SIP trunk. Any of the services, the IP on your firewall, all of that stuff stays the same. That's huge because today, again, what I see being on the technical advisory board for VMware with VeloCloud is that a lot of carriers are out there deploying VeloCloud. They've got millions of deployments now worldwide. Very few carriers can do global. Very few carriers are on the latest version, 3.3.0. Very few carriers do, well, actually nobody other than us, I think, does read-write access, and nobody has IP mobility where they're delivering those IP addresses for you. So what happens is a site goes down, and they say, hey, I thought I'm supposed to be up because it's SD-WAN. It's the magical Wizard of Oz solve all problem product. And the problem is the circuit that went down had their IP addresses, and we're not, most carriers are not solving for that problem. We do. Because your website, your email, your firewall is all tied to those IP addresses, so you need them. But anyway, getting back to my original story, my boss asked me to do the agent training last month, and he said, do ultimate firewall comparison. And any of you guys who've dealt with security, that's like the holy grail. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a favorite firewall. There's tons of grids with features, and it's like a feature fight, and you're trying to figure it out. And I was just like, can I just go pull Excalibur, from the stone or something easy? All right, and he's just kind of like, no, go do this. And what was really interesting was, as soon as I dove in, I realized, and keep in mind, I have 30 certifications, okay, plus a law degree, because they ran out of certs, I guess. But, I dove into this, and I just thought, this is the craziest thing ever, and I actually kind of refused to do it at first. But once I dove in, I noticed something very, very interesting. Most firewalls, when I say most, I'm talking about north of 90% of firewalls out there do not work. Now, this blows a lot of people's minds, because that's a big statement. But they don't work for two reasons. Things have changed dramatically in the last 3 years, okay? So basically, there's two features that are usually missing on a firewall. One is a simple fact, which is 80% of traffic that goes through a firewall is encrypted, okay? You can't even go to google.com, and this is how I explain it to customers. I say, you got a computer in front of you? Yeah, go to google.com. Try to go with HTTP sometime, unencrypted. It won't let you. It'll redirect it to HTTPS, google.com, and then you're going to do your search. Are they unique? No. 5 years ago, it was only your banks. These days, everything and everybody is encrypted. Guess what? If your firewall is not running a feature called DPI SSL, Deep Packet Inspection Secure Socket Layer, which the newer iteration of SSL is called TLS, Transport Layer Security, you're not seeing any of that traffic. So all those little firewall features about malware protection and filtering this and filtering that equals zero because it doesn't even see the traffic. That's number one. Second reason why most firewalls don't work, and I'm talking about all of them, right? Because people plug these in, the lights start blinking, the internet's on that side, I'm over here, this is my firewall, I feel safe. Complete nonsense. Second reason why the firewall doesn't filter anything is because it's subject to evasion techniques. So if you haven't heard the term NSSLabs.com, you are missing out. This is a website, if you go there, that is the company that tests all the security products in the world, okay? And they said that out of all these dozens and dozens and dozens of vendors and people who make security products and firewalls, only 6 firewalls mitigate 100% of what are called evasion techniques. Again, your firewall cannot filter what it cannot see, okay? So if you know a way to kind of like send a packet in a certain way that the firewall doesn't actually, it doesn't trigger it to filter it, or you can get around the filtering somehow, the firewall's not going to do anything. So only 6 firewalls scored 100% on that test, all right? All the rest, there's a way to get the traffic through. And I don't care if there's only one way, the hackers are going to use it. So a lot of firewalls don't run DPI SSL. They either don't have it licensed, the guy's never heard of the term, so he doesn't license it, can't afford to license it, or even if they have heard of it, can afford to license it, go ahead and license it, the hardware can't handle it. And so think about this, because I used to do this in the cloud. I actually used IP reputation filtering, where basically my firewalls and my edge routers would reject traffic from over 500 million out of roughly 4 billion IP addresses on the IPv4 internet, simply because you're identified as a troublemaker, right? So I didn't even have to, deeply look at the packet, because I just say, you're a bad guy, I'm not talking to you. And I was getting attacked 100,000 times per day per data center, okay? So imagine if 4% of those got through. I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of attacks that are successful against your infrastructure every day. I'll give you a simple example you can all identify with. How many times do you go look at something you're shopping online and that product follows you around, like a ball and chain for the rest of the day, and you're like going, how's this thing, why does it keep popping? I was looking at boats earlier. Why does it keep popping up boats every other website, right? Now, if it's that easy to tag you like that and follow you around just for shopping, how many little parasitic malware things do you think are attached to your laptop and your home PC right now? Hundreds. And the only ones you're actually going to notice or care about are the harmful ones. But all of these things are stealing a certain amount of data, and so it's very important to have good firewall protection. So 70% of all breaches occur in organizations under 100 employees, and these guys usually can't afford a heck of a lot, right? Most attacks, even in large companies, go for about 146 days. That's over 3 months, right? Before some third party tells you, hey, I got an email from you, and this doesn't look right, and then you realize you should look into it, and that basically you're having all these issues. And these are the challenges that your customers have today. And unfortunately, this is the funny thing, a lot of times when you walk in, you see an IP phone, you see a firewall, you don't sell it because you figure, oh, they already got one, right? So the two things I would leave you with is, number one, their firewall probably doesn't work. I mean, when I walk in, I don't say, do you have a firewall? I go, which one do you have? How old is it? And they tell me 3 years or older, I start laughing, and they're like, why are you laughing? Because I know I'm going to sell you a firewall. How can you say that? Well, it's probably missing 2 major features. And we go through the conversation, they buy a firewall every single time. Then I start talking to them about their IP phone. Is this just a phone that you got from XYZ company? Because there's a million guys out there doing hosted phones. What are you doing for QoS? At every single step, the switch, the router, the circuit, all the way up, right? Did they give it to you free on a 3-year? I don't know. So these guys are looking to solve these problems, and on average, they don't want to spend more than $1,500 a month. Now, here's something you need to keep in mind. Security guys are expensive. You can't get a good security guy for less than 6 figures a year, 100 grand a year. And you got to have at least 2 of them because the guy's going to go on vacation, right? So when you look at these prices, I mean, a $60,000 a year guy would be $5,000 a month. They still don't want to spend more than $1,500. They're a small business. They need security. The owner of Broadcom, who I used to work for, who's worth $10 billion when he told this to me, he said, security is like air. I know I need it. I'll die without it, but man, I don't want to think about it all day, right? So when we sell these, it's a security operations team. We put it in, we replace it. They get a weekly report. How many guys can you go to right now and say, what's your security posture? They don't know. They have no idea what their security posture is. They don't know how many times they got attacked last week and how many of those were successful. You get a weekly report that'll tell you all this stuff. And they're not just monkeys waiting around for you to call. They'll actually go through the logs, they'll upgrade the firmware. These guys actually work. There's a team of about 30 guys, about 20 miles from our headquarters. That's all they're allowed to do all day long, right? So differences in approach. So we do sell 2 firewalls, SonicWall, who broke away from Dell. Since they did, they have DPI SSL, they have Capture ATP, which is their sandbox. Sandboxing, by the way, if you don't have that, NSS Labs testing of actual firewalls showed that you have a 4% gap in your firewall, which means in 100,000 attacks, you're getting like 4,000 attacks are getting through. Sandboxing means, and this is kind of the progression of firewalls. In the early days, I had a signature. It said, basically, don't let a guy with blue jeans and a white t-shirt through the door, right? But then guy shows up with black jeans and a brown t-shirt and he gets in. So then they went to heuristics, which was, now I'm looking at characteristics of traffic. So don't let anybody in that has blue jeans and a t-shirt, period. I don't care what color it is. That'll stop them. Then they started going with shorts and a tank top, right? So you're just like, this is pointless. So the point is that there's a lot of ways to filter traffic, and SonicWall does deep packet inspection. It can decrypt traffic. It does it all. It's got the sandbox. It can get you to very close to 100%, okay? No other firewalls do this. And just so you know, in the NSS Labs test, the firewalls that came in, number 1 was ForcePoint, number 2 was Fortinet, number 3 was SonicWall, tied with Palo Alto. So I know that drives the Palo Alto people crazy nuts because they're like the creme de la creme, but that's just the way it worked out. Sorry, right? So definitely you want to check these guys out. It's better to have all these features turned on because otherwise it's kind of like you have, basically, airbags but not seatbelts. Honestly, you need both. People get that, and so you got to have all these features turned on. We do not sell any of our firewalls without all the features turned on. Okay, so with SonicWall, you get all the features turned on. Meraki, they sell 2 licenses. One's called Enterprise, which I think is kind of funny because it doesn't come with much. And then advanced security, we sell the advanced security license by default. So when you look at our prices, you're going, wow, this is super low. Just know it comes with everything, because I never wanted to have one of those licensing discussions with vendors where I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, we're going to have a whole meeting on licensing. Oh, that sounds fun. So we always said, look, forget all that. Give us all the features. We'll move mass quantity. We'll put a team around it. It works pretty well. Now here's why people don't run DPI SSL, meaning they can't decrypt traffic, because it absolutely obliterates your firewall. Palo Alto was so embarrassed they didn't want to report their numbers, right? Cisco Meraki doesn't do it at all because they just don't have the horsepower. They do it a different way called IP reputation, which I've used. It's a pretty good way. It means I know you're bad by IP address, so I'm not even going to talk to you. So they actually have a decent firewall, but they do it totally different. They don't look at packets deeply, okay? They can't see encrypted traffic at all. In fact, they added HTTPS filtering, and it actually killed the throughput on the box by 95%. So you could turn it on, but I wouldn't recommend it. SonicWall and Fortinet actually did pretty well, but you'll see on both of them, you get a firewall that's approaching 3/4 to almost 1 gig, and when you turn the feature on, it reduces it, from like 750 megs to 50 megs, or from 950 megs to 125. Right? So this is why I guarantee you when you go out there and you start talking firewalls and you get us on a call, people are going to be like, wow, I've never even heard this before. Firewall vendors don't talk about this sort of stuff because it really is kind of the dirty little secret. But we sell it with all the features, so you don't have to worry about that. They get one portal to log in, so if you get a customer who's deploying these all over the nation or all over the world, they'll get one portal, they get to see it all. Same thing with our Villa Cloud and our Meraki solutions. There's one portal, you log in, you see all the sites. We got a security operations team around it as well. So definitely talk to us about security. Get us on the call. I've configured every firewall on earth. I know all the features. I can talk in depth with your security guys. You guys will sell tons of security products if you get us involved. Same thing with SD-WAN. There's now 44 vendors in SD-WAN. I talk to all 44 every year. I'm on the board with some of these guys. Other guys, I just know the founders of the companies, et cetera, et cetera. You'd almost think they all do the same thing, but they're radically different. The reason why people buy SD-WAN, I won't go through all these one by one because I'm running out of time, but bottom line is that they buy it for the aggregation. SD-WAN is the only bulletproof way to build a network these days. It is literally the only way. You can plug as many circuits as you want into the thing, it'll make one big pipe out of it, and it'll figure it out on its own. Before, with Cisco gear, you had to be a CCIE, and you had to do everything through command line, and you had to do it on every single device. Through one portal, you can configure the whole world in 5 minutes. So this is really cool, by the way, with LTE. All right? Let's say, with LTE, it was always, can I get coverage? And then if the answer was yes, what's the speed? Nobody would tell you. So you get out there and you figure out, hey, I need 100 meg pipe, and you figure out, hey, I'm only getting 10 meg, right? Now we're getting toward gigabit speeds. Everybody's getting excited about 5G. But today, the reality is you might be getting 10 megs on 4G, right? So if you want 100 meg pipe, I can take 10 LTEs, bond them together, and you have 100 meg pipe over wireless. So a lot of people use this because it's the only connectivity they can get. We can also do that with satellite. I got a guy in the middle of a Louisiana swamp who has 2 satellite, 2 LTE connections, and he's happy. It's the only connectivity he can get. We send all the voice over the LTE, enhanced by SD-WAN. We send all the data, because it has 600 milliseconds of latency, over the satellite, and he's fine. Email does not care. Web does not care about 600 milliseconds of latency. There's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second, so 6 seconds is a little over half of a second delay. Voice actually works over it, okay? If you come to our lab, you can actually place a call, super cool, with an IP phone over a satellite link. It's clear as day with SD-WAN enhancing it. The problem is you kind of have to act like you're in the military. Hey, how you doing, Joe? Over, right? But it works. And trust me, if you're a guy on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean somewhere, you're pretty happy to be making that phone call. So it does aggregation of as many circuits as you plug in. Any kind of circuit, any bandwidth, any different upstream, downstream circuit, it'll use every bit of juice in there and it'll figure out on its own. Hypersonic 2 millisecond failover and failback. At headquarters, when I lose a circuit or a circuit gets to the point where I can't run voice anymore, doesn't matter. Nobody notices. Why? Because the very next packet goes out over a different path and no phone calls drop. I got 200 people on IP phones, they don't drop. Now, I told you earlier, we do 4.5 billion calls with SIP. This has revolutionized, and this is where new products enhance old products. This has revolutionized how we handle 4.5 billion phone calls. If I put up a SIP trunk for a call center, right, and think about this, call centers. Guy calls in, you know, because you've done it, you talk to 2 or 3 idiots, you finally get to somebody who knows what they're doing, you spend an hour on the phone, and just at the very end, the call drops. You call back in, you're gonna get the same agent? 9 times out of 10, no. You got to go through the whole rigmarole again. How pissed off are you now, right? So we put up SIP trunks, and we use IP mobility, same IP address at either end, hypersonic failover, hitless failover, okay? Back in the day, I'd have 2 SIP trunks, 2 circuits, 2 IP addresses. When it failed over, for some strange reason, nobody at corporate ever, all my sales guys didn't come pat me on the back and go, hey Mike, that was so cool. I was talking about our hosted phones and the call dropped, but I was able to dial right back out, and get back on the conference call. No, they're like, that was embarrassing. I can't work like this. By the way, I'm going home. I need to work on my tan, right? Same thing with call centers. Doesn't happen anymore, right? And Joe's got a pretty good tan, but that's because he lives in Florida. So bottom line is, that doesn't work anymore. So when you combine SD-WAN with some of these legacy technologies, guess what? I have POTS lines that don't fail. I have PRIs that don't fail because they all go into basically an ADTRAN router, and then upstream it's all SIP, and the SIP no longer fails. The hosted phones don't fail. If I lose a circuit, and I can show you in the lab, I'll just pull a circuit, nobody even knows. It literally goes out the next circuit and it doesn't take a hit. But nobody else has that feature that I've seen in SD-WAN. They're still screwing around with SD-WAN. They haven't discovered IP mobility, which is that feature. And then last but not least, you're getting quality of experience. Traffic backhaul. I'll have to talk about that some other time, but we did that with Gold's Gym, some others. It's super cool. Before you had to send all your traffic to the internet. Now you can carve it up, right? I'll tell a story real quick. So they were deploying internet circuits for Gold's Gym all over the world. The lawyers at their organization come at the end of the project and said, if Miss Hollywood's working out at the gym and her phone gets hacked and these pictures get out, never happens, right? I always blame the Apple Cloud anyway, but if it gets out, they're like, look, we're going to get sued. They're going to want to know how many firewalls we got at each site. And they're like, well, we don't really have any. And so they said, you got to buy firewalls. And they said, what's $50 million? Thanks for you guys showing up at the end of the project. So IT's all pissed off. Lawyers are yelling at them. I came back in and I said, thank God we're running SD-WAN. And everybody goes, what do you mean? I said, well, here's what happens. I said, think about the traffic of the gym. Everybody's listening to music. They're watching TV, IPTV of some kind, Netflix, whatever. And then you got these phones that are getting these ridiculously sized updates, Apple, Android, whatever. Are you really worried about Apple, Android, these guys hacking your phone? Because, by the way, they've already hacked it when you installed their app. But, are you really thinking they're going to do any of this kind of damage? The answer is no, right? So I said, look, just send that traffic out locally from the VeloCloud directly to the internet, because we're not worried about those guys. And that's 90% of the traffic. Take the 10%, which is everything else, and this is something you can only do with SD-WAN, is say take everything else and backhaul it to the nearest firewall and then out to the internet. They didn't have to buy a single firewall. They just used the ones that were at the corporate offices or whatever, Joe's garage, they had one in the back, and out it went. Nobody cared about the 10% traffic, but they still had to cover it. So traffic backhaul is pretty cool. I won't go through each one of these. This deck I'm sure will be available to you through TCG, or just email me. My card's on your desk, mike.chase@airespring.com. I answer 7 days a week. Joe's easy to get a hold of. His card's in front of you as well. There's also a longer deck and a video that I recorded. So if you kind of like some of this information, you want to see across all our products and what the differentiators are, it's called The World of AirSpring. This is a deck that I use to train agents and all of our internal staff. So they all love me. It's like the first video they're forced to watch at work. But I'll send that to you. But we go through features of what we offer and don't offer, white glove support, one-stop shop. It's pretty unique, right? And then we have global SD-WAN. So there is an agent training. All of you should be on it. July 25th. If you're not, email Joe. He'll send you the link, get you signed up. But you're going to want to see how to deliver traffic between China, North America, and Europe. Then eventually we'll expand from there. I get requests for India, Australia, Central America. In fact, I just hired an engineer in El Salvador, Roberto Rivas. He's a great guy. So we're getting ready to go to South America and some other places in the future as well. And here's the POPs that we have today. We have Singapore, we have China covered, we've got the US, and then we have Amsterdam and Frankfurt in Europe. So, and a 10 to 100 gig network connecting all these sites together full mesh. So if you jump on and let's say Singapore and you want to go to Dallas or Frankfurt, you can go directly there. So these are all full mesh between all these sites. You can go directly to where you want to go, jump off the gateway, down to one of the SD-WAN units, and then into your network. So why AirSpring? We do a lot of large multi-location customers. We have a lot of large logos doing that. We're experts across many different solutions. You have many carriers to choose from, many technologies to choose from. We're crazy. We'll give you read-write access in many cases to these platforms. We know route switch. The days of just dropping a circuit in and waving at the customer are over. You're eye deep in their local area network. There's not much you can do about it. Our spiffs are amazing. We do 6x on voice. We're doing 1x MRC on SD-WAN. Everybody's selling VeloCloud. I don't know if everybody's offering a spiff on that. We also do some awesome toll-free. We own our own DIDs. We've got a lot of different services. So I'm really, if you like what you've heard today, thank you for your time, but we've just barely covered the surface. So definitely email us. We'll send you the World Airespring and some other decks. And thank you for being here, and thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.